Is there a previously unknown planet hidden in the farthest reaches of the solar system? More and more astronomers now assume that the mysterious Planet 9 is real. And mind you, this is not a vague guess but a solid conclusion. After all, the strange anomalies in the Kuiper Belt literally scream that a huge celestial body is hiding here. But that's not all. A team of researchers is now even sure that an undiscovered planet must lurk at the edge of our home system. But what led the experts to this sensational assumption? Why has Planet 9 still not been officially confirmed? And why is it so complicated to track it down? Have you ever wondered where comets actually come from? Well, if so, then you have something in common with the Dutch astronomer Jan Hendrik Oort. Since he was not satisfied with the fact that the source of comets is somewhere out there, he postulated a bowl-shaped zone at the edge of the solar system in 1950, which acts as a natural reservoir for comet cores. Unfortunately, the so-called Oort cloud was only able to explain the orbits of long-period comets. But a certain Gerard Kuiper came onto the scene the following year to explain the background of their short-period counterparts. And although the Kuiper Belt is now firmly established as part of the basics of astronomy, it would take another 40 years before its actual existence was officially confirmed. In detail, we are dealing here with a ring-shaped structure of icy debris that extends just outside the orbits of Neptune and Pluto and which, in addition to comets, also contains frosty chunks and small planets. But beyond that, and this is the exciting part, the Kuiper Belt has been suspected for some time now of literally hiding something bigger, a giant planet that has successfully eluded our earthly research to date. But what is this exciting assumption actually based on? And how realistic is it that we have simply overlooked a full-grown planet for generations? Well, not that unrealistic. As mentioned, the planetary secret would be hidden far beyond the orbits of Neptune and Pluto and thus so far away from us that it would appear invisible even to the most powerful telescopes of our time. Fortunately, however, direct observation is not the only tool at the disposal of experts in their search for a planet. And if there is anyone who knows how to crack the riddle of the Kuiper Belt, it is Michael Brown. The American astronomer has been dedicating himself to uncovering the icy worlds at the edge of our home system for quite some time now. He named the largest of these worlds Eris, but he could have just as easily called it Pluto Killer. In fact, the discovery of the dwarf planet contributed significantly to Pluto being removed from the list of official planets in 2006. And while the planetary banishment still causes outrage in some circles to this day, Brown continues to look back on his decisive find with a mixture of humor and pride, because on X, formerly Twitter, he actually calls himself Pluto Killer. Asterisk on the trail of Planet 9 ** 2006 was not only the year of Pluto's farewell, it was also the year in which the discovery of the so-called distant detached object set a much larger astronomical ball rolling. The objects, also discovered by Brown, actually formed the cornerstone of a research study that led to a revolutionary result. Yes, a completely unknown planet could really be hiding in the remote world of the Kuiper Belt. In detail, the self-proclaimed Pluto Killer, together with his colleague Konstantin Batygin, investigated the question of what the strange orbits of those strange objects are all about. In fact, follow-up studies had shown that 6 of them describe an elliptical orbit that points in the same direction, which seemed all the more confusing given that the objects actually migrate at different speeds and their orbits are not the same size. But the common orbital inclinations seemed no less confusing. After all, the orbits of all 6 celestial bodies deviate by about 30 degrees from the orbital plane of the other planets and objects in the solar system. So, can it really be just an unusual coincidence? Well, Brown answered this question with a definite no right from the start. And even more than that, since he estimated the corresponding probability at 0.7%. He even thought this idea was out of the question. And yet, it was not initially the ominous Planet 9 that was held responsible for the goings-on in the Kuiper Belt. At first, astronomers suggested that the gravitational effect of several massive objects, such as a group of dwarf planets, was responsible for this. Ultimately, however, This theory had to be discarded just as quickly as it had emerged. After all, for such a scenario, the Kuiper Belt would have to be 100 times more massive than it actually is. Consequently, the mystery had to be solved from a different direction, and a few simulations later, Brown and Batygin came to the remarkable conclusion that all the observed anomalies could be explained by the existence of a planet about the size of Neptune. To do that, its orbit would have to be shifted 180 degrees from that of the remaining planets and Kuiper Belt objects. And indeed, the astronomer duo realized in the period that followed that more and more observations coincided with the presence of such a planet. Among other things, this could be used to explain the special orbits of the trans-Neptunian object Sedna and another large celestial body without any gaps. But does that really settle the matter? Why haven't we discovered Planet 9 yet? According to the experts' models, Planet 9 weighs between 9 and 10 Earth masses and orbits the Sun at a distance of 400 to 1,500 astronomical units. To put this in perspective, 1 astronomical unit corresponds to the mean distance between the Sun and the Earth, which is around 150 million kilometers. And while our earthly home takes 365 days to orbit the Sun, Planet 9 takes a whopping 20,000 years. Assuming that it really exists, the mysterious planet would therefore be out of reach of our normal telescopes most of the time. And then there is also the fact that Planet 9 is most likely very faint. In this regard, the model calculations of a team from the University of Bern have shown that its intrinsic luminosity is only 0.06. Neptune, on the other hand, has a value of 0.01. Furthermore, the puny radiation of Planet 9 could also be mainly in the infrared range. This means nothing other than that its temperature would be around 47 Kelvin or minus 226 degrees Celsius, which would ultimately make it only slightly warmer than its cosmic surroundings. But do all these factors mean that we will never be able to confirm the existence of Planet 9 beyond doubt? Well, not necessarily. Because if a celestial body is currently closest to its closest point to the Sun, it may have already appeared undetected in the images of past sky surveys. But even if Planet 9 is very far from the Sun, hope is not completely in vain, because then the planetary bullseye could be hit with the help of a powerful telescope such as the Vera C. Rubin Observatory. But a little patience would still be required here, because the reflecting telescope is currently still under construction and will not be put into operation until March 2025 at the earliest. However, the full truth also includes the fact that the final confirmation of the celestial body would not only expand the list of planets in the solar system, but also that of cosmic mysteries. Why the existence of Planet 9 would be problematic according to the general view. Large planets are formed where the original gas and dust cloud provides sufficient material. This is not surprising, because only in these regions is the reservoir large enough to gradually form larger clumps and finally entire planets. But with Planet 9, the matter becomes complicated at precisely this point. With an average distance of around 700 astronomical units from the Sun, it actually moves far outside the zone in which the primordial cloud provided sufficient material for the formation of giant planets. So, the question is, how could a planet that is only slightly smaller than Neptune end up in such a remote and eccentric orbit at all? In fact, this circumstance even pushes our current models of planet formation to their limits, although the same applies to the fact that, according to one simulation, Planet 9 must also be structured very similarly to Neptune. And that is precisely the crux of the matter. How can a celestial body build up an outer layer of ice together with a dense gas envelope of helium and hydrogen if it has actually spent far too little time in the gas-rich heart of the primordial cloud? But if Planet 9 really exists, then it must have somehow come into being. And to explain its formation, researchers point to 3 different theories. The first is that Planet 9 originally formed in place and in an ordinary, nearly circular orbit in the planetesimal disk. The passage of a nearby star then caused it to be gravitationally captured and finally brought to its present exotic orbit. However, the probability of this scenario is another matter altogether. After all, The original cloud of the Sun would have had to have been significantly larger and more long-lived than currently assumed. Furthermore, the question also arises as to whether Planet 9 would not have been catapulted completely out of the solar system during the stellar tryst. But who knows? Maybe stars did have a hand in it after all, and maybe these stars were even the siblings of the young Sun. According to this model, the star cluster to which our Sun also belonged was torn apart by galactic tidal forces. Before our source of warmth and life said goodbye to its stellar family, it could have stolen Planet 9 from one of its siblings, or, in other words, captured it with its gravity. However, the probability of a stolen planet is just 1%. So, the third and final formation theory is currently considered the most promising. According to this theory, Planet 9 was formed in the inner regions of the primordial cloud, just like Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Gravity interactions and turbulence eventually caused the large planets to be pushed into orbits much further out, and as the outermost representative, Planet 9 was consequently pushed farthest out and finally catapulted into an eccentric orbit. The crucial point here, however, is that Planet 9 would probably have been catapulted completely out of the solar system. Well, unless it was slowed down by the dense gas of the primordial cloud or in nearby star passage. And indeed, the discovery of an exoplanet orbiting its binary star system in a comparably extreme orbit has shown that this is quite possible. But despite all the plausible models, Planet 9 has so far not advanced beyond the status of a purely theoretical planet in the missing persons case. But who knows? Maybe the James Webb Telescope will soon be able to shed more light on the planetary darkness of the solar system. And would be happy if you would now put a little more subscription into your click. Feel free to click the thumbs up and subscribe to never miss a new video from us again.